Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Pesachim Kuf Ches. We are on Kuf Ches Amud Aleph, 5 lines from the top of the Amud. Says the Gemara, Rav Sheshes have a Yosef B'Tanisa. Rav Sheshes would actually fast Kol Mali Yomid de Pischa, the entire Erev Pesach. So every Erev Pesach would fast the entire day. Now we actually learned yesterday, based on the Mishnah, which said that on Erev Pesach, Samach Mincha, a person should not sit down to eat. And we had 2 options regarding the interpretation of Samach Mincha. Option was, Mincha here is in reference to Mincha Gedola, meaning 12:30 in the afternoon begins Mincha Gedola, Samach Mincha is 12 o'clock, and the concern was that by sitting down to have a meal, perhaps it would interfere with the Asiyah of Korban Pesach, which he might overlook. And therefore a person should not engage in Achila at that point. The Gemara actually concluded that the correct pshat is Samach Mincha Ketana, which is 3:30. Samach Mincha is 3 o'clock. And the concern is on account of appetite. It shouldn't interfere with the appetite of the Achilas Matzah, which is a mitzvah d'oraisa, and is more mahudar when one has a desire to have that matzah. That was the conclusion of the Gemara yesterday. Now we learned that Rav Sheshes would actually engage in tanis. He would fast Kol Mal Yom de Pischa, the entire Erev Pesach. Now Taisus learns that Lav Dafka was an official tanis. He was just careful not to eat. Or, Inami says Taisus, he actually accepted upon himself, he committed himself to fast. This way, he would remember that he's not meant to eat. So either way, he refrained the entire day. How are we going to explain that? It says the Gemara Nema Kosavar of Sheshes. Perhaps Rav Sheshes holds that the correct pshat in the Mishnah, Lo Yochel Adam Samach Mincha, means Samach Mincha Gedola Tanan. It's a reference to the Mincha Gedola. Umisham Pischa, for concern that it might interfere with the Korban Pesach. Umisham Pischa hu Dilma Mimshech Va'asi Li'imnui Mila Mevad Pischa hu. Perhaps the meal will get drawn out and will interfere with the Korban Pesach. He might miss the opportunity to bring the Korban Pesach. If that's the case, why does he stop? Why do you have to stop eating in the morning? Explains the Gemara. V'savalok yiha do Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Belazar. Rabbi Yehuda tells us the name of Belazar that there is a shita that Korban Pesach can be brought all the way from the morning. Don't have to wait till afternoon. Machshir hoye ben Beseira. Ben Beseira would be machshir bePesach sheshchotei shachris b'arba'asar l'shmoi. He would be machshir Korban Pesach, which was brought in the morning of Erev Pesach, if it was l'shem Pesach. Umitzafro zman pischu, in which case from morning on is already zman Pesach. Dekuli yoima chazil Pesach, because the entire Pesach is suitable for Korban Pesach, the Savar, because he holds, although the pasuk says that Korban Pesach is meant to be brought bein ha'arbaim, which we interpret as meaning, Rashi Chomish explains this, bein ha'arbaim, Erev is darkness, between the 2 darknesses. Chatzos begins the initial phase of darkness. It begins shadowing a bit. That's one Erev. And actual nighttime is the second Erev. Bein ha'arbaim means in the afternoon. That's the way we learn. According to Ben Beseira, he holds the Savar bein ha'arbaim means between yesterday's darkness and tonight's darkness. Bein Erev de Esmoil le Erev de Idna. So you can bring the Pesach starting from this morning at the conclusion of yesterday's darkness. You can bring it throughout the entire day until tonight. So perhaps that's the pshat of Sheshes. He holds refraining from Achila is related to Habas Korban Pesach. It shouldn't interfere with the process. He shouldn't get carried away with his meal and overlook the Havoah of the Korban Pesach. And the Zman of Pesach begins way back in the morning. And that's why he was moineya from eating the entire day. Now, of course, although in his time, Rav Shesh's time, there was no Korban Pesach brought, it was after the Churban, explains the Rashbam. However, Itzer, since the Gzeir was already enacted, he maintained that halacha. So is that the pshat of Sheshes? Now, we have lots of givens here. A lot of elements need to be presented to form the basis of Rav Shesh's shita. You can read the Pesach the entire day, and the concern of eating is because of the Korban Pesach. Is that correct? Says the Gemara, loy, amri, loy, not necessarily. Shani Rav Sheshes, the istinis hava. No. Perhaps Rav Sheshes was in line with our pshat in Samach HaMincha, as we concluded yesterday. There's a concern about appetite. Samach HaMincha means in the afternoon. Why then was he refraining from a morning on? Because Rav Sheshes was oversensitive. It was an istinis, the istinis hava. If he would even taste something in the morning, it already would detract from his appetite. That night, food wouldn't be as attractive to him, wouldn't be as desirable to him, and he wanted to eat the matzah, the full desire, with full geschmack, hider mitzvah, and that's why he would have a tinus the entire Erev Pesach. Continues the Gemara. Afilu oni shebi Yisrael lo yoichel ashi Yosef. Mishnah tells us that even a poor man, he must lean, he must do a seba derech cherus, as a show of freedom, of being spiritually, physically free. So even an ani, perhaps you would think it's inappropriate for him. Taisa says he has nothing to really lean on, and perhaps an ani, he doesn't exhibit cherus by leaning. It's not compatible with his social standing. It says the Mishnah, no, even an ani may not eat until he leans. Itmar. Now we're going to get into the discussion of haseba. What requires haseba? Haseba is in the Rabbanon, to lean on one's left, which is derech cherus, a show of being free and independent and show of royalty. What does need haseba and what does not? Itmar, matzah, tzarech haseba. Matzah for sure needs haseba, because what's the point of eating matzah? It's a zeicher to the geula. Matzah formed because they didn't have enough time. They were chased out. They were left in a hurry. And there was no time for that dough to turn into chametz. Therefore, during the achilas matzah, where you're exhibiting the cherus, the freedom, you meant to lean, which demonstrates the cherus. However, says the Gemara, moroyer, which is just the opposite. It's derech shibud. You're coming to commemorate the slavery and the shibud. Ain't tzarech haseba. Haseba there is not in place. Let's take a look at the Rashbam. So we have the widest lines of the Rashbam on bottom, and then right before the wide lines, 5 lines before that, you'll see the Rashbam begins with matzah tzricha haseba. K'sha'oichel matzah shal mitzvah. Laila Rishon, of course, is not matzah throughout Pesach. It means the first night when you're eating the matzah shal mitzvah. Tosa says the achilas matzah, the afikoyman. It's meant to be beheseba, kivnei chayren, like free men. Shuzerech legula. The point of matzah is an expression and demonstration of geula. Morar, however, eitzarech haseba, shuzerech la'avdus, is exactly the opposite. It's meant to demonstrate slavery and avdus, and therefore seba is not in place. Continues the Gemara. What about the 4 cases of yayin? Yayin. Itmar mishmeder Rav Nachman tzarech haseba. We have one version in the name of Rav Nachman that the shtias yayin needs haseba. Itmar mishmeder Rav Nachman ein tzarech haseba. We have another version quoting Rav Nachman that haseba is not in place. We seem to have a machlekes. It's actually not a contradiction. It depends which ones of the 4 cases. Ha betarti kasi kamoi. This is in reference to the first 2 cases. Ha betarti kasi basroi. And the other version of Rav Nachman is in reference to the second 2 cases. Now, there's a big difference between the first set of 2 and the second set. The first set is in the process of describing the geula. We begin with Kiddush, we lead into the Haggadah, and then we drink the second kais. So it's revolving around the description of Yitzias Mitzrayim and Cheres. We don't actually experience Cheres yet. That only happens after the Haggadah. So the second two kaises is drunk when we're already experiencing Cheres. We've already experienced the status of Cheres. We're already out of Mitzrayim. So that's the distinction here. Regarding the first two kaises, there is one halacha. Regarding the second two kaises, we have another halacha regarding Heseba. Now, which way is what? Amri lo lahagisa. Some maintained that we're meant to go in this direction, meaning that the first two kaises need Heseba, as opposed to the second two, which do not need Heseba. V'amri lo lahagisa. Some had a different approach altogether. The second cases, the second set, are the ones which are meant to have a seba, but not the first two. And the Gemara will explain. Amri lo lahagisa. The first approach was the first two cases need a seba. Trei kasi kamoi bo a seba. The first two need. The hashtahu the kamaschalala. The kamaschala la cheres, because now cheres is being initiated. You're discussing Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Haggadah. You want to demonstrate and exhibit cheres as you're describing it. You're going out of Galus. You're going out of Mitzrayim. And that's why Heseba is in place by the first two cases. Trei kasi basroi, as opposed to the second set of two, lo yibo Heseba. No, Heseba is required. Why? It's past. It's over. Whatever happened, happened. Meaning, you've already gone out of Mitzrayim. There's no need to demonstrate it all over again. And therefore, the first two cases have a seba, but not the second two. Some maintain the opposite approach. Adrabah, just the opposite. The last two need a seba. Haishata the Gahavi Cheres, because at that point he is experiencing Cheres. He's a free man. He's already out of Golus. The point is to demonstrate that contrast. Look, the first two cases I was still Mitzrayim, so to speak, and therefore they were not drunk derech Cheres. But now I'm already a free man. I'm independent. Now, look, now I'm drinking derech Haseba, derech Cheres. So that contrast highlights the newfound status. Trei kasi kamai loibo aseba, as opposed to the first two cups don't need a seba. The kati avadim yinu kamar, because we're still discussing the experience of avadim yinu. We haven't yet been set free. So which way do we go? Is it the first two or the last two hashta? Now the itmar hachi. We have one approach which says the first two cases, the other approach which maintains the second cases. So which one do we follow? Both sets. The first one, the last two, require Haseba. Now, the Rana asks Akasha, Haseba is a din d'Rabbanan. Don't we know, generally, a din d'Rabbanan, when there is a suffix regarding din d'Rabbanan, we go l'kula. Suffix d'Rabbanan l'kula. Why then does the Gemara say, all four cases require Haseba? Answers the Ran. Because in this case, you have a suffix on the first two cases. Well, maybe it's the second two. You have a suffix on the second two, maybe it's the first two. In which case, it will result in no Heseba for all four cases. You are going to uproot, you're going to eliminate the concept of Heseba by Dalet cases. And that we can't do. We can't bring about that the four cases Shal Yain will not have any Heseba whatsoever, and therefore the Ran says, apparently, it's either nothing, which can't be, and therefore it's all. And all four cases need Heseba. Now Tosfos points out, the Gemara speaks about the some cases not needing Heseba because you're discussing Avdus. Well, what about Matzah? Why do we say Matzah needs Heseba? Just like the second two cases, the Gemara says, well, it's already a past event. It's already after you've been let out. There's no need to have a seba. Matzah, you're eating during the Suda. Why the hava? You're done describing the process of Geula. Why is there a point of having a seba by Matzah? And Tosfos says like this, that the Torah itself relates the eating of matzah to cheres. It's zeicha lecheres. Shali hispik betzekim lahachmet ashnigalu. We see the Torah itself tells you that matzah is meant to be a show of freedom, a show of cheres. Even though, says Tosfos, matzah is a poor man's bread, it's lacham oini. Still, you're meant to eat it derech cheres. And therefore it applies to the achilas matzah as well as to the afakaima. Continues the Gemara. How do we go about doing a seba? Prakton, lying flat on one's back. Loishmi a seba. That's not called a seba. That's not derech cheres. That's not the way to eat. Haseba is yimin. Loishmi a seba. Likewise, leaning on one's right side does not constitute a seba. Rashbam says it's kind of difficult because you're meant to eat with your right hand. V'lo not only that, it creates a health hazard. Elashem yakdim kana leveshet v'yavay de sakana. By leaning on one's right, it might actually cause the epiglottis to curve upward, in which case the food might enter the kana, the windpipe, as opposed to the veshes, the esophagus, the food pipe. So apparently that happens when you're leaning towards your right. The food might enter the kana as opposed to the veshet. That's why his seba is strictly to one's left. Now the difference between the two pshatim, number one, that it's a convenience concern because he's meant to eat with his right hand, and the second pshat because of sakana would be by a lefty. In which case, reason number one wouldn't apply, but reason number two would apply. And in fact, in halacha it's brought down that even a lefty should lean on his left, because the second reason of sakana overrides the convenience element. Continues the Gemara. Isha tzal bala loibaya seba. An isha, a wife, sitting in front of her husband, does not need to do a seba. There's actually a girsa that many Rishonim have. They omit the words etzel bala, in which case every isha will not have a seba. The Rashbam explains that the isha does not need a seba for two reasons. Number one, mepnei emas bala, because of the awe, the fear of her husband. Ukfufila, she's subservient to him, and it's not in place for her to exhibit that show of independence in front of her husband. Another pshat in the name of the shultas that Rav Achai is that lav dar chayil dem nashi lemizga is not common for women to lean while they eat. It's a man's thing to show independence and macho-ness. So, according to the first pshat, it would only apply to an isha who is in her husband's presence. Amos bala precludes haseba. But the second pshat, that it's not common practice for nashim to engage in a seba, well, that would apply to any isha in all circumstances. And in fact, that's how it's brought down in halacha, that an isha does not do a seba. However, says the Gemara, if she is a prominent woman, a isha of chashivas, in which case it is a common practice for her, it is in place for her to do a seba. Indeed, she requires a seba. And that's how it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch, that a typical isha does not have a seba, but an isha chashuva does. However, the Ramah says that our nashim do not do a seba. We're saying on the sheet as Rav Yehuda, who says that in any case, haseba bezman hazeh is not really so much in place. It's not our practice to lean. And therefore, when it comes to nashim or mekel, there is no haseba by nashim bezman hazeh. Continues the Gemara. Ben etzel av. What about a son sitting in front of his father? By haseba is required. Rashbam says the lo have a kafaf kol kach. He's not so kafaf. Now, one of the fellows in the share asked, well, if anything, it should be just the opposite, because an isha doesn't really have a mitzvah to fear her husband, whereas a son, ish ima yivav tiro. Why don't we say that the ema, the yira of a son to his father, is actually greater than an isha? So perhaps it appears that the distinction is that an isha is naturally subservient to her husband. She's naturally feels secondary to her husband, which is good. That's the natural state of an isha in a healthy situation. And therefore there's no room for a seba. But when it comes to a ben, it's a mitzvah. It's something that needs to be an effort. It needs to go into the generating the ema, the yura that he's meant to have for his father. It's not something which is naturally occurring, and therefore it does not preclude his seba. Continues the Gemara. Iboilu Talmud to Rabbi Mai. What about a Talmud by his Rebbe? Is he compared to a ben who needs a seba, or perhaps he does not need a seba due to the moira rabach, which is meant to be k'mor shemayim? Mai tashma. Amar Rabbi Kiavinon beimar. When we were present by Mar, our Rebbe Rabbah, who was the Rosh Hashiva then, zaginan abirkida adadi. We would actually lean on each other's knees to fulfill heseba. Kiasinon be Rav Yosef. When we came to Rav Yosef, who followed as Rosh Hashiva after Rabbah, Amar Lan, he told us, Lo yitzrichisu, you don't have to lean. There's no need to make a seba here. Why not? Moira rabach k'mor shamayim. The fear that a Talmud is meant to exhibit towards his Rebbe is equated actually to the Yiras Hashem. Let's take a look at Rashbam, 2 lines from the bottom. Kiasinu Rav Yosef, the Rabbi Malach became Rav Yosef. The Gemara Harris tells us that, Gemara Brachas actually says that Rabbi was a Rosh Hashiva before Rav Yosef. So when we came to Rav Yosef, he told us no. The Moira Rabach K'moira Shamayim. The Chsiv es Hashem al Kachatira. S is a reboot. It's going to add something to Yiras Hashem. Rabbi Samad Chachamim. As we learned earlier in the Daf Beis, Hishva Moira Rabbi L'Moira Shamayim. The Torah here equates the Yira for a Rebbe to the Yiras Hashem. And since you have Moira Rabach, Haseba is not appropriate. Continues the Gemara. Meiseve. Is that so that a Talmud does not engage in a Haseba? We have a brayso which says, Ima koil odom meisev. A person is meant to do a Haseba when he's with anybody. Vafilu Talmud it's a Rabbi, even a Talmud with his Rabbi. And this contradicts Rav Yosef's halach. Kitanya hi b'shul yedinagri. We're not speaking about a spiritual Talmud with a Talmud Chacham Rebbe. Rather, we're speaking about a Shul Yid Nagri, an apprentice, a student of a Nagar, of a carpenter, who's learning a profession. In which case, there's no concept of Yira, of Moira Rabach, and of course, in this case, he's meant to do a Seba even in the presence of his master, of his teacher. Iboilu, they asked the following Shaila, Shama Shmai, what about a servant? Does he do a Seba or not? Tashma D'Amar B'Shem Levi. Hashama shachal kazayis matzah. Kishu meisef yotza. Hashama sha'edis kazayis. When he was leaning, he is yotze. We learn from here, meisef in, only if he's best seba. Loy meisef loy, but otherwise he's not yotze. Shma mina, boy seba shma mina. It's pretty clear from here that even a shamash, a servant, needs a seba. He's not so bottle, he's not so kafef, he doesn't have that yira, he's simply a servant, and therefore a seba in his case is certainly appropriate and required. So in conclusion, we learned about a seba which is meant to be on one's right side. Matzah needs a seba, mara or not. The conclusion was that yain, whether the first two cases, in which case he's experiencing cheres, he's describing cheres, they need a haseba, as well as the second two cases, which are drunk after one has already attained the status of cheres. The conclusion was we'll machmer on both sets and apply a seba to both. An isha ordinarily does not need a seba. Isha chashuva does. A ben with his father does. A talmud, well, if it's his rabbi, he does not need a seba. If he's just a student learning a profession, a seba is required, as well as by a shamas. Continues the Gemara. Let's proceed to the Dalat cases. Va'amar Rabbi Shimon Levi. Even women, noshim chayaves ba'arboa cases halal. Even women are chayiv in Dalat cases. Why would I think otherwise? Explains Tosfos, because we know that a mitzvah says seishas man grama doesn't apply to noshim. Now, even though Dalat cases is only the rabbanon, says Tosfos, I would assume that they established their halacha similarly to the halachas of Torah. And just as an isha's patah of mitzvahs nishman magrama, she would be pata from Dalat Koises, and the Chiddush here is no, Noshim Achayiv. Why? Says the Moshe Af Hein Hayu Ba'isa Nes, because Noshim as well took part in Nes. Let's take a look at the Rashbam, and then we'll see Tosfos who disagrees. Let's start with the Rashbam on the top line. She'af Hein Hayu Ba'isa Nes. The Amar b'Masechas Soita b'schar Noshim Tzidkanios shehayu ba'isa Adar nig'alu. The Gemara says the Geula of Mitzrayim occurred b'schar the righteous women. So we see they were actually a catalyst. They brought about Yetzias Mitzrayim. They were part of the Nes, and therefore they must take part in the celebration, Dalat Koisos, and everything that comes along with it. The same thing we say regarding Megillah, Noshim Achayiv, because the Nes was brought about by an Isha, Esther Malka. The Nes Chanukah, as we know, the Midrashim speak about Yehudis, who was the catalyst, the Tzedekis was the catalyst of the Nes, for the Nes Chanukah. That's Rashbam's Pshat. Tosfos disagrees. He says, according to Rashbam, why does the Gemara say Noshim Achayiv? Sha'af hein ayu ba'isa nes, because they were also part of the Nes. According to Rashbam, it's not they were also. They were actually the main feature of the Nes, the main stars. Therefore, Tosfos learns differently. Af hein hayu ba'isa nes means they were part of the sakana, which led up to the Nes, part of the travails, part of the hardships, part of the tragedy, the gullus, the difficulties. They've also experienced it, and therefore it is very much in place for them to celebrate the Geula of that Nes, the Geula of that Shibud, of that Tzara. The same thing we say about Megillah. They were part of the Gzeira of Lahashmed Laharik. Same thing regarding Chanukah, and that's why they are meant to take part in the mitzvahs that relate to the Nes, which extracted us from the particular hardships. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Abo koises halalu tzorech sheyehei bahen kedei mezigas kois yafa. Shmuel tells us as follows. In the former times, they had highly concentrated the wine, which was then diluted to enable its consumption. How much raw, undiluted wine do we need? Says Shmuel, you need to have in each one of the Dalat Koises, you need to have enough undiluted wine so that when you dilute it, they would take 1 part wine, mix it with 3 parts water. So it was 1/4 wine, 3/4 water. That's how concentrated it was. You need to have enough of that undiluted wine so that once you dilute it, you have arrived at the amount of a revius, which is the shear of kois yafa. Kois yafa, the Rashbam will tell us, is a kois shel berachas hamazon, which was meant to be beautified, to cover the mitzvah. So his point is very simple. You're meant to have enough undiluted wine, so that after you dilute it, you end up with a revius, kedei mezigas kois yafa, enough to dilute it and reach the same shear as the kois yafa, which is the revius. Let's see the Rashbam inside. It would be 6 lines, the 6 lines from the top. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Dal koises halal tzorech sheyeh behen mechol echad. He needs to have enough raw wine there. Sheyeh behen mezigas kois yafa shel bracha. Shi'uroi roiva revius log. You need 1/4 of a revius halog of undiluted wine. Kadei shim again over yamad al revius log. So after you dilute it, you end up with the revius. To call chamra dori al chatlas ma'elav chamru, because in those days when they had this highly concentrated wine, which was actually unique to Eretz Yisrael, a wine which you cannot dilute 3 portions water versus 1 portion wine is not considered proper wine. In any case, that was the way, that was the recipe. Now at this point, the Gemara doesn't know yet that the end result is a revius. The Gemara figures the mezigas kois yafa, V'roiv revius lav chachi urhu. One doesn't realize at this point that this reference to mezigas kos yafa is actually a quarter, actually contains a quarter of a revius haluga of raw wine, which will end up being a revius. The Gemara doesn't connect the two. The Gemara someone will ask it as a kasha, but the Gemara will conclude as such. That's all Shmuel meant to say. He meant to have enough undiluted wine in there, which is a quarter of a revius, so that when you dilute it, you end up with a revius, which is the same as the kos yafa. Now, what is kos yafa? Kos shabrichas hamazon. Why? Mishum nasar dvar nemer b'yisol bracha g'isvachas bracha. The Gemara there says you have to purify it. That's why we refer to it as kos yafa. Let's continue the Gemara. Shasan chai. What if he didn't dilute his wine? He drank it undiluted. Yatsa. He's still yatsa. Shasan basachas yatsa. Suppose he didn't drink the 4 kaises in their proper seder, the proper sequence. The first one is meant to be with Kiddush, the second with the Agada, etc. He didn't do that. He knocked them off one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just one after the other. He's still Yaitse. Hishkemehen lebanov lebnei beis Yatsa. If he served some of his wine to his family, he's Yaitse. Now the Gemara will go back and explain these halachas. Shasan Chai Yatsa. This was just said that drinking it raw, undiluted, he can still be Yaitse. Amarava Yidei Yayin Yatsa. True, he was Yaitse, the din of the mitzvah of Arba Kaises, because wine is wine is wine. It's still wine, even though it's a forced drink. It's undiluted, difficult to drink it. He was Yaitse. Yidei Cheres La Yatsa, but he wasn't Yaitse, the concept of Cheres. Rashbam says, Kalaymar Einzu Mitzvah Shlema. It's not a complete preferred manner of doing your mitzvah. Chashivas is drinking something properly. That is a show of freedom, of independence, of royalty. Doing it in a forced manner, in an uncomfortable way, is not cheres, but it's still yaitse, the mitzvah of dalat kaises. Shasan basachas Rav Amar Yidayin Yatsa. So we just said drinking it all at once, his yaitse. And Rav explains Yidayin Yatsa. Yidei arba kaises la yatsa. He was yaitse what? Not arba kaises, because Chachamim established a very specific order. So the arba kaises, if he drinks them one after another without following the proper order, he's not yaitse. The arba kaises. What then did we mean? Vasachas is yatsa. Rav explains Yidei yayin yatsa. He was yaitse simchas yantiv. That's what he was yaitse. But not the mitzvah of the dalat kaises. Continues the Gemara. Hishkemehen lebanov ulivnei beisa yatsa. If he served it out to his family, he's yaitse. How is that? Amar Rachmar Yitzchak. V'hu de ishti ruba de kasa. That is only if he himself made sure to drink roiv of the kais, which Tosfos explains to mean malay lugmav, a chikfal, which is the minimum to be yaitse the mitzvah of a kais. So he drank that much, he was yaitse, and then he doled out the rest to his family. Now, interesting, Tosfos back on Tzadik Tesam Beis brings a raya from this Gemara that only the head of household needs to have dalat kaises, and they're yaitse by listening to him. You don't have to have each person, each member of the family, have his own personal kaishal yain. Gemara says he drank roiv, but then he gave them all a bit to drink. Apparently, he was the one who had the kais, not them. But Tosfos actually concludes there, it's better to be machmer and have everybody have their kais. The Ran, however, disagrees. He says, how do you know that's the pshat in the Gemara? Perhaps he fed them the proper amount. He gave them all the roiv revius, a cheekful. True, it was his kais, but it was a jumbo-sized becher, in which case he had enough to hand out a share, a sufficient share to every member of that family. And the chiddush of the Gemara, who dish to rule the kais, is that the chatchila meant to drink the entire kais, says the Ran. And even though he only drank roiv, that's okay. So there's a difference in Rishonim how to learn pshat in this Gemara. But in any case, Tosfos himself concludes that it's better to have every person have their own kais. V'nir lahachmi says there, v'lahatzrich arba kaises l'chol echad. Continues the Gemara. Meisivei. Now we're going to go back to the first opening statement of Rabbi Yehuda Mashmo. The arba kaises are meant to have kedei mezigas kais yafa, which the Gemara at this point does not yet connect to Revi'us. Meisivei, of a brisa which says, Dal kais alalu, sarach sheyeh behen kedei Revi'us. The four kaises, each one is meant to have a Revi'us. And this seems to be in contrast with Shmuel, who uses a different term to describe the shir, kedei mezigas kais yafa, but the Gemara does not yet connect to Revi'us. The brisa continues. What type of wine? Echad chai, whether undiluted, v'echad mazig, or diluted, echad chadash, whether fresh wine, v'echad yashan, or older wine. Rashbam explains both too fresh and too old are not really high quality and good tasting wines, but in either case he is yaitzi. Rabbi Yehuda, sarach shei b'tam umar yain. You must ensure that it has a high quality taste and also look like wine. It should have that redness, which is the natural wine coloring. We're going to get to that in a moment. In any case, we have a stira. Katanimias. At any rate, the brisa says, "Kedei revi'us." What is the share of the kais? A revi'us. Vat amris kais yafe. Whereas you told me it needs to be like a kais yafe, which the Gemara does not presume to be revi'us. Amri. Indeed, the Gemara responds, "Idiv idichat shiruhu." Actually, they're both one and the same shir. My kedei mezigas kais yafe. The Amar l'kol chad v'chad. When he said that you need to have enough wine to dilute it and get to a kais yafe, it means each one of the four kaises need to have enough raw wine, which, when diluted, results in a share of kais yafe, dahavle l'kula revi'us, which means that it will total. We'll have a total of a share of revi'us per kais, and therefore there's no kash from the brisa. Each kais needs to have revi'us. Let's go back to his shita. Tzarach sheyeh b'tam umar. Wine is meant to taste and look like wine. Amar of my time with Rabbi Yehuda. What is his makar? Yechsiv altera yain ki yis adam. Pasuk in Mishlei warns a person: don't get drawn, don't get attracted by the taste and the appearance, the color, the attractive color of the red color of wine. Apparently, proper wine, quality wine, is described as something with color, something red, as well as something which has an attractive taste. Let's see the Rashbam. 4 lines from the bottom. Altera yain. Al tachmid lios ragaboy. Don't desire. Don't catch on. The habit of drinking wine. Ki is adam. Michlal di yain ame mariboy. Apparently wine, proper wine is meant to have wine color, red. V'tamen ame boy. And of course, it also has a good taste. Kedem mahazorle. The fact is, the pasuk needs to warn you, don't get drunk. Apparently, there's something there to draw a person. A taste, as well as color. So in summary, regarding the 4 kaises, which applies to men and to women, we learned that each kais is meant to be a shir revi'us. They're meant to be drunk ala seder. First one kiddush, second one agada, third one halal, the third one mechsamazin, fourth one halal. If he drank them chai, undiluted, he's yotzei dal kaises, but not cherus. Of course, Taisus points out that this only applies if the wine needs to be diluted, as opposed to nowadays, where there's no need to do meziga. We learned that at a minimum he's drinking roiv revi'us, and of course, adaim is preferred. In fact, in Shulchan Aruch it's brought down that it's mitzvah to use red wine. Tanu Rabbanan hakol chayav b'arba kaises all achayiv. Arba kaises alalu echad anoshim ve'echad noshim ve'echad tinoikes. You meant to be mechanech the youngsters as well. Amar Yehuda v'chimati elis yesh l'tinoikes beyayin. What's the purpose of giving yayin to tinoikes? They have no enjoyment from wine. Meaning, true, you try to be mechanech them, but even chinuch has to be age appropriate. You have to relate to it and have some benefit from it. There's no point in giving them wine to drink. Rather, give them sweets. We give them roasted grain, which still has some sweetness to it, v'agoizin and nuts. But Pesach, kadesh yishnu v'yishalu, to keep them up, they shouldn't fall asleep. They'll be alert and awake, and they'll engage in the discussion. They'll ask questions regarding our strange practices at the Seder, in which case we will be Makai the mitzvah v'gata levincha. So skip the wine, just give them some sweets, which they'll appreciate. Amr olav al Rabbi Akiva. The following was said describing Rabbi Akiva, Shay machalik kloyos ve'goyim tenoikos b'Rav Pesach. Indeed, he would dish out these things to the children, kedei shelo yishnu v'yishalu, to keep them awake and inspire them to ask questions. Okay, time for a brief chazara. We started with Sheshes, who fasted throughout Erev Pesach. And the Gemara says because he was unique, he was an istinus, oversensitive to food, and he wanted to maintain the optimal appetite for the mitzvah of matzah. We learned about a seba, which is meant to be on one's right side, because otherwise it would pose a health hazard. So you lean on the right, derech cheres, in a show of royalty and freedom. Matzah has a seba. Morer, which is seichel shiva, doesn't have a seba. Yain, all kaises have a seba. Isha ordinarily does not, but chashuva does. A ben etzel aviv does. A talmud etzel rabbi does not, unless it's just a teacher or teaching a profession, in which case there's no moira rabach there, and a seba is required. A shamas, a servant, does lean as well. We learned about the dalat kaises, which apply to men and to women as well, and according to Tanakam of the Brisa later on, even to young children. For chinuch, each kais needs to have a revius. He meant to drink it in its proper order. If he drank it undiluted, he's yaitzi, but chiras not. The Gemara says that if he drank them all together as one, he was yaitzi mitzvahs yamtiv, simchas yamtiv, not the dalat kaises. Regarding how much to drink, Rav Revius is required, which is actually a cheekful. And as we learned in the Shulchan Aruch, it is a mitzvah to use red wine. The Gemara concludes that Rabbi Akiva would be mechalik the klois v'goizin tenoikos. Some have that minhag today, even though perhaps a goizim are not so attractive for tenoikos today. Some have the minhag dafka to hand out goizim nuts, in keeping with the tradition, the age-old tradition, to keep the kids awake and alert. This way they will ask the shaylos, and we will makayim the mitzvah of Igad Tol Mincha. All the best and much hatzlacha.